Okay, I think we're recording. So we'll get going. I am also one of those people that I'm happy to answer questions. I'm not trying to make a perfect recording here, just trying to get things out. Part of this is a little bit selfish on my part since I'm going to be doing a presentation on this, if not at Connect in other times, because I have a few other folks that wanted to hear about this. So my name is Willie Felton. I'm the director of IT at Seattle Academy. This is our second year in Veracross, so we've been implementing pieces after time and again. We've been adding other programs, summer school, extended care, transportation, we added our accounting, development. We've kind of gone around the bend on implementing everything. So I'm one of the two SIS admins at school, so I have my hands in this process almost every step of the way. Again, as I was saying to the group, this is going to be a little bit rough, a little bit made up. I'm just going to do my best. I have some samples and my slide deck is very skinny. So this is the overall, and this is kind of for sysadmins and for configuration folks, because so I kind of went through the process of 5 different pieces I had to put together and kind of where and how they are used in Axiom. So I'm going to try to touch on all these today, but let me just walk through this. And then I'm going to go through our use case. So I know everybody's going to have a slightly different use case. Ours is certainly probably unique to everyone's on here and that's listening. But anyway, this was the process. So first, there's a course configuration setup that's important. And we happen to have 2 classes, but you can have as many as you want if you wanted to add more classes. We implemented a parent sign-up form. So that's through the other programs. And we use that other program sign-up process also for summer school. So that's where I had cut my teeth on that process, was learning about the summer school stuff. Our sign-up for this is free, but we do utilize other programs for summer school, which does have a fee and portion of it, but that's not part of this. A big piece of this is the student enrollment management, which I can't come up with a better term. That's a big piece here, and it's all over the place. So that includes like student logistics requests. It involves the extended care module in managing the registrations, just like a registrar. And I even found one pitfall, which I was a little unhappy about, that I'll highlight here, about managing student enrollments perfectly requires somebody to impersonate parents occasionally if you want it to all look perfect. So I'm not sure I can run through the whole test of that here, but I'm going to try, because it was a really weird case to try to get it to work well. Attendance, that's where, of course, where this came from on the Google group postings, was taking attendance. And I posted there, we'll go look at it in Axiom. Effectively, and I'll highlight this again, it does not work from the teacher portal unless you have a very specific use case, which I'll highlight. And that's just a normal classes. That's just in the normal classes area of extended care. You can do it from the registrar areas as well if you have the right queries. And then we send out parent communications. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because it's essentially a composer process. That's very manual. We have someone that sends out communications about kids being here or not being here. I'll say what we do, but I'm not going to get into a process of using composer. I'll show where the templates are, but that's about it. I'll stop for questions in just a minute. I'm going to only have 2 more slides here, and then I'm going to dive into Axiom. So I copied this right from the posting I had. So this is going to look familiar if you read it, but this is our use case, and I need to shorten it for my future slides, but we use it for a kind of a study hall. Basically, middle school students need to be supervised. We call it a study hall, but it's essentially a supervised room. There is 1 room. At times, I think it sneaks into 2 rooms. So again, very specific to us. We're not spread out all over the place. It's really 1 adult in a room with the students that need to be picked up from school. So we provide this care. Parents need to pick them up by 5. And so they need to, now the tricky one that we have not quite solved is the students that come out of their out of their athletics after volleyball or lacrosse or whatever. They're supposed to go to these rooms, and trying to tie the attendance between athletics and this is something we are trying to tackle in the fall. We have a plan for it, but it's essentially a workflow so that everybody has to take attendance, right? It's just like any other class. So that's a piece we're still trying to put together, but essentially that's where they should be. So students dribble in over the course of a few hours is, I guess, my point here. I didn't love the parent sign-up process for this. Essentially, there's a parent sign up form for parents to sign up for regular, like every Monday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that works well. That works just fine. Managing those changes to those can be tricky. I'll see if I can dive into that a little bit today, but the form works really well for parents, but making changes is somewhat difficult. I wasn't, and I'll show how this ties in with the SL, the student logistics request, because they're different, and it is confusing for parents. But I did touch base with our the person I'm managing this system, and I said, how, are the parents confused? And she said, no, they got it, they figured it out. So anyway, our supervisors, who are just teachers essentially after school, they go into the study hall and take attendance in Axiom. I tried really hard to get it to work in the portal. It loses the definition of what days a student should be there. So it does update with the kids' attendance for the day. So if they weren't at school, it will update that there, but it does not pay attention to what days they are registered for, which was really, that was upsetting to hear, because I really wanted to use the teacher portal, but it's pretty straightforward. So I'll show that attendance piece for sure. As I mentioned, we send emails to parents if their kids aren't there, or if a kid shows up and we didn't expect them. That is really to get them to sign up, because if a kid shows up every day and we keep emailing the parents saying, hey, we have your kid, we're kind of encouraging them to go into the form and register when their kid should be there. So we do that kind of as a little carrot and stick. So, and they check out. We do not use the check-in, check-out kiosk. I use the check-in, checkout kiosk for lots of things at our school. I'm not going to talk about that here. I've actually done a talk about that with Veracross somewhere. It's on the community somewhere, but that's not something we use. And if there's questions about it, I'm happy to say why it either will work or won't work. This is my last slide. Then I'm going to go into Axiom, rundown of the 5 components I showed, an outline of the attendance process. That seems important. Pitfalls and lessons I learned, and questions. But I will take any questions right now, and feel free to use the chat as well. Great. I'm going to keep flipping back and forth to this slide because I want to make sure I'm following this. We start with a course configuration. So from the system thing, I just built the classes, and we built and this is configured at the course level, not the class level. So the key thing here is the course type. If you've paid for the module, I believe you have to highlight it as extended care, not other programs. The difference there, I'm not sure exactly the difference except where they show up in the modules, but they are very similar. And really extended care is just like the baby brother of other programs. So you can see the 2 classes we have here. And again, same structure as always, course with a course type, classes. And but this is what drives everything. We did add a classification I added a classification to make sure we can query the courses properly. It's not functional, but it is there. I don't believe there's a lot of we're not doing grades, so there's no grade configurations, there's no transcripts, there's no report cards. So that's really the top level configuration. And you can see we have right now 24 students in one, 18 in the other. So, pretty good registrations, but I'll show you more about those when we get into the there's the class course registry classifications. The next piece, and I'll go there, navigate here, is under other programs. It took me a while to understand that the form configuration is not under extended care. It is under other programs. So if I go to other programs, it's down here at the bottom, program registration config. This is where, and you can see some other things that we have in here, some summer school. So I built all these for summer school. We don't actually use those bottom 4. Those got pulled over from last year. And then we have some summer program stuff, but this is the after school one. And I'll just go through this configuration. And I know I'm going really fast, but I'm just going to kind of cruise through this. So this form configuration, if you've never done it, is relatively straightforward. The key thing here is this. Well, let me go down the list here. So here's the course classification. So I made that so it ties with the form. So this form, that's why I had to make the classification. So this form will let you register for any course that has this classification. That's why I made it. So if I accidentally put in other classes in that classification, then I'm sorry, courses with that classification, then you could register for them. And actually, in testing for this morning, I noticed that someone had made a rogue class in that course, which I deleted. So this is what ties it together. So this is what tells the form what classes are offered. Titles. This roles, if you've never done the program configuration forms, this roles is very important. This says what roles can access the form, and that's a parent role. If you want to find them, you just go to their roles on your system, under the system page. And so you can add a student, you can have students register, like for a summer school or something. The tricky thing comes is if you want future parents or future students, so that you have to add a bunch of roles because there's different roles that they might have. So future student, future parent, etc. So if you just do a comma delimited list of those allowed roles, that's who can access the form itself. Otherwise, they get just a page not found, which is an annoying error. But that's an important configuration. We are not doing seats available, wait lists. I do have that running in my summer program, so that actually works relatively well. And the wait list length, that's really good. Public registrations, this doesn't make any sense in this context, but if you do want a public registration, I believe you have to ask engineering to turn it on, to turn it on. But I did that a couple of years ago, but we don't have any public registrations forms. Emails, the open and closes are important. So it does require you to put dates in here for the browse. Browse just means a view only page. I don't give that link to anyone. You can see here are the 4 links that are generated. The browse, if you just wanted people to see it, which doesn't make sense in this context. Public landing URL, which we don't use. Household, which is the one we actually do because we want this to be done at a household level so that they can sign up for each of their kids. And I'll show you an example here in a minute. Personal landing page URL is used if you want like a student. I think I haven't ever actually used it, so I think that's if you want someone to sign up for just that, who you are. We do not charge a fee for this program, so we do not set this, and we don't set any of those things. So those are all just defaults. I can see over here, if I go to program courses, there's the classification, there's the course ID. Again, this is not at the class level, it's at the course level. I can see my registrations here. So, yeah, I'm not going to get into the registrations. They just show up there. That table is not particularly useful. I'll show you how they show up in the enrollment stuff in classes in just a minute. So that is the kind of course and parent sign up. Matter of fact, let me show you the parent sign up form. So I'm impersonating a parent here who has 3 kids. You can see this person is enrolled. So this doesn't it doesn't make sense in our system for them to be signed up for both of these, but we have a study hall that starts at 3 right after school, and then we have a study hall that's basically after sports. Again, we're kind of working on that in terms of how the difference between those, but there's kind of two classes. They for some reason have signed their kid up for both of them, which doesn't really make sense, but this is what it looks like. By the way, sysadmins or whoever is impersonating this is not the normal in the URL. You have to put your name / and then a parent name. So if you want to impersonate into one of these forms, you have to use your name in the login page. It will say your name / and then you have to get a parent that is allowed to access it, and then you can impersonate them. That took me a long time to figure out. If I launch a sign up, so you can see this, it's 2 kids launched, signed up for this. If I go launch sign up, no programs are available because this is a middle school only. That was good to do. So I see a couple of questions here. I'll address in just a second. This 9th grader, we don't do it for a 9th grade. So I set in that registration form. I believe that's at the class level. I'll look in there as we get there. So that 9th grader can't sign up. But if I do launch this thing, I will show you. Here's what they sign up for. And this is actually an important screen. And I'll talk about it in a second. I'll just look at these questions for a second. Kiosk does not, well, you can do it. It does not tie into extended care. the kiosk. You can have it sign in and out as like basically a spreadsheet. The only time I think the kiosks really function really well is if you do them for daily attendance. So if they log in at the beginning of the day, it will update their attendance in their all their classes. As just a check-in, check-out, it's essentially just a database table. It doesn't really tie in with other systems. So that's what I can do more on kiosks later. Conflict if the classes are happening at the same time. Yes, it should. And I have that working for my summer school. So I don't know why it's not working here, but I have gotten it working. You have to make sure that they have the same. There's a setting in the class schedule that has to be the same for them for it to see it as a conflict. That's a good question because I did mess that up for my summer school, but I got it working. So I just probably didn't pay attention to it here. But maybe I'll go fix it. I want to mention something about this screen. Later, when I talk about pitfalls, I really like that a parent can show up here on this form and see which days they're logged in for. And now that I'm looking at this, why is every day duplicated? Looks like I have some fixing to do there. But why is like the fact that the parent can see that this kid is signed up for Tuesday and Thursday, that's important because later, if you manually enroll students in these classes, this doesn't get updated. And this is annoying. This was a pain to find. Is if I just go into Axiom, add the kid to the class and the course and all this, even if I add it as a program registration, this is not updated. This is on a very sneaky table. And the way to do this, if you want, is you have to impersonate the parent and sign in as them, which I showed you how to do impersonations, but that's the only way to get it so that the website will represent what's in Axiom for the parents. And that's a huge shortcoming in my opinion. And I only had to do it a few times because I just kept sending the parents the URL, but for a parent that really didn't want to do it, I would just impersonate them and sign up for them. Why these days are duplicated in here, I have no idea. Guess I'll have to go look at it after this. So, good questions. I'm going to keep moving on here. So we are up to registration config. There's the forms. Here's what it looks like. You can adjust all this text here. That's all configured. So we're out of this, and now we're on to, let's put this down here. Student logistics requests. So student management was a big consideration for us to utilize this because, and I have one person in our school who basically does this. They take requests to add people for the day or whatever. So let's look at that. So the student logistics request is meant for the parents to tell us if a kid is in one of three things. One, a drop-in, so they are not registered and they need to show up for study hall that day because the parent can't pick them up. So that is so that person is not in the registration. They have never been on the program registration form. They can go to the student logistics request and say, I need a drop-in. Two, if a kid is registered, that they are not going to be there or that they're going to leave early. So let me show you the student logistics request here. Here's an example. I'm personally a parent. If I can, these are student logistics requests. So attendance for the day, multi-day, and I can show you the setting of where this is in Axiom to get it to show up. It cannot be filtered by grade. It shows up for everybody, which is why that text lives there, middle school only. So upper school parents do see this option. We ignore it, doesn't do anything, but you cannot filter it out based on grade. So on this day, new single day drop-in. So new person, never registered, change scheduled arrival, departure times, and not attending. Now, the reality is parents mess these up. They mess up which ones they're clicking on. That is where our after-school manager comes in. They look through them and say, oh, you registered for a drop-in, but you're actually really registered for that day anyway, or they problem solve it on the queries. I don't know if I'm organized enough to show you all our queries for this, but I'll see what I can do. So that's the student logistics request, and it works really well, but it does require someone on our side to take those requests, look at them, and figure out what to do. And that was the most training I had to do was, hey, if this person is registered for a Monday, but they want to have a drop in on Tuesday, how do we do it? If they're not registered, how do we do it? So there's a pretty complex workflow there, and I have it in a document, but I'm kind of trying to turn it into a presentation, just as a nice like decision tree. Great. So now we are. Let me see if I caught all that. So student logistics requests, extended care. I'll go into that next. So in the extended care module, we can manage our registrations just like you would in a registrar. It's very similar. It does have these queries are just specific to those types. So if I look at my classes here, extended care classes, I have 2, and I'm going to click on one. So these are we're at the class level now. Yep. So this looks like most classes. It doesn't have as many options. Here is who's included. Here's the registrations. When I have my manager add people, or actually I just have them subtract people. So they just go in here and delete their registration and delete their enrollment in the class here. The reason this is kind of easy-ish is because we're not doing money. That is much more complicated. You have to use date withdrawn, and there's a whole other accounting piece that we do for our summer school, which is more complicated. I'm not in the accounting side of things a lot, but I understand how it works. But if this was a paid system, you have to do more than just delete their enrollment. In fact, you don't want to delete their enrollment. You need to do date withdrawn and then clean up the accounting side, depending on how your refunds or whatever, however your payment stuff is managed. But in here, that's all they do is take it out. The reason they don't put them in is that we want them to do it from the website, or I have to impersonate them. So I've told them to come to me. I have to say I've not manually put someone in since the first month of this launch, and we did it this year. So I don't do it. It's very rare. So normal class management starts and dates. Let me look at this schedule. This might be where my mistake is on. I have to look at what's going on with this schedule thing. So it looks like maybe this Monday, Friday is duplicating that. I'll have to look at why those days were on the form. So, but I built their schedule. You can do that like a normal class. So there's that. So yeah, let me go back to here. This is where, and we'll talk about attendance here in a second. This again looks pretty much normally like a normal attendance in Axiom. You'll notice that there is not a configuration in the extended care module for the form. Recall that is in the other programs, which I always forget. Okay, we're cruising here. So attendance. This is where I wish I had a slide finished for this, because you can see here the drop-ins. So extended care attendance doesn't get generated with normal attendance. It generates at like 2 in the afternoon, I think, 1 or 2, some afternoon, early afternoon, before the end of school. And I didn't set that. That's just an accident. That's a default in Veracross. Like so if you update their attendance, if their attendance is updated through the day, like they go home an early dismissal, then it will generate later and be correct. So that's kind of nice. So my front desk manager will deal with our drop-ins. So someone went to a student logistics request, they put in a drop-in, and they approve them. That sends them an email. Present expected. Looks like maybe these are already approved. Anyway, so she looks at those. Now, if she does that, though, she needs to go add them to the attendance, because drop-ins does not. The student logistics request, excuse me, and I'm wrong here. Let me back up. These are our student logistics requests. Here they are. So these are to be approved. So we had to build a query. Let me start this over. Student logistics requests. Whoops. I told you this was going to be a rough presentation. So there's none right now. So they come in, look at that, they approve it, that sends an email. So in just normal SLRs for school, we have two, by the way, we have one maiden attendance manager who does it for the whole school. And I have another person that does it just for this program, just because she has other stuff to do. So once a day, she'll go in here and approve them. Once she does that, unfortunately, the SLR does not, after it's approved, does not add that person into the extended care module. I don't know why that doesn't work. It seems really obvious that that should do it. It does not. So they go to add a drop-in. So this is a functionality that I train my manager on and the people in the class, the supervisor. So I'll spend some time on here. They do not use add a registration. My manager would do that, but generally she just does it from the class screens. Again, but if you do that add a registration, it will not show up properly in the parent form. Yeah, like they won't be check marked, which drives me nuts. But we can look at the added drop-in. So you can find the student. We have a date today, and then there's my two classes. And those two classes show up there because they are tied to the course level that has an extended care type. So that's how it logs there. We went through a bunch of, this is up to your guys' workflow, whether what we say is they're expected and present. Or actually, we say a drop-in is unexpected but present, or something like, I can't remember, I have it written down, but we just work. This isn't functional. It just tells the supervisor in the classroom what to do. So you can put in timeout or notes, and all that shows up in queries for them, just as far as whatever workflow you want. Once you do that, they will show up in the proper day for the proper class in these attendance queries. So if we look at today's attendance query, here it is. We'll spend some time on this screen. So let's see. So you can see scheduled. That's what we were setting. If they're not scheduled, but they're expected. So this one right here is a drop-in. And that drop-in could have come in a few days ago. Let's see, question. Can you have a cutoff time how late in the day these SLRs can be submitted? No. And they do sometimes show up late. They sometimes show up after. But at that point, we're going to I'll talk about my email communication. They have to learn. I mean, you can't request a service after it starts. Like, you will get requests at like 3:30 for something that started at 3. So we can't shut it off on the website. I don't think you can automate a logic of an email like you're too late. So I don't know of a way we could limit. We just have to train people to do it. I could put some language on the parent portal on this guy right here that says a time. Like, remember, this can't be filtered. So I could put something on here that says requests after 2 p.m. please call. Probably what I would do. And they do sometimes call. Good question. So back to our attendance thing, because again, this is what's kind of spurred this conversation in the first place. This is not a bad screen. I said earlier I was not happy that I couldn't get the teacher portal working, but this is not that hard. I mean, other than me needing to make the permissions for a teacher to get into Axiom, which they normally don't do. There's an extended care security role, which only gives them access to these pages. And I can have I create a document that basically bookmarks these. It says, hey, just go to these bookmarks, and it just goes here. Like, they don't go wandering all over Axiom and try to do stuff. And I make some nice queries for them. I want to write up that documentation a little bit better for external use, and I'll share that around. But at the moment, it's just it's good. It has screenshots and stuff. So scheduled, just a flag that is now scheduled is automatically done if a student is registered for a specific day. So you can see these people down here that have no check marks. Those people are registered. So from the parent form, they just not in attendance today, which happens to be a Friday. So those people have not been registered for a Friday. So that's what the scheduled means. Expected is, so you can see like this person right here, so is scheduled, is not expected because they have an early dismissal. Now, that was not done by hand. That was done automatically by the system. So we have athletics in the calendar. So athletics goes in there and says, we have an early dismissal for athletics at 2 o'clock. It figures out, which is really nice. It's the reason we have the athletics module do this. It figures out what classes they're going to be absent for. So effectively this expected was unchecked by the system because of the early dismissal. Same thing if they checked out at a kiosk. We do have some things that students can check out at a kiosk, or if they went home, or if they called and said, hey, my kid's not coming today, then our manager would just unclick that. And then when they take attendance, they would say, oh, we're not expecting this person. We then try to get we ask the supervisors to update the time out if we can. I'm not sure if how accurate that's been these days. I don't monitor it. The attendance notes comes from the daily attendance. And for those of you that monitor these things, the attendance notes has been updated so that SLRs and early dismissals don't overwrite each other. So that's really nice. The attendance notes have gotten really good. These extended care notes, our manager might put something in there like kid's going to be 10 minutes late. This I just tell them is a communication channel for them to talk to the supervisor, who's just on a different floor. Question, just to confirm, on the attendance page shows all enrolled students, no matter if they are expected the day or not. Correct. This on the attendance page. Correct. That is true. I have built queries that strip all those people out and try to make it as simple as possible. But the default, you're looking at the default here, does show all of the registrations. And if I said add registration, they would show up in here for a specific day. And this is what I'm talking about when I say the attendance is generated in the afternoon. This, as if you guys work on the attendance land, you have to generate the attendance on a daily basis. I mean, run the little system command if you have to, but this would be empty, or this has not been updated, right? It's generated 7 days out. So if my manager does some changes today, this will be regenerated at some time in the afternoon. I'm not exactly sure, but and then like we can see yesterday's. So you can see it looks like our supervisors are updating the timeout, which is great. We had a lot more people here yesterday. So yeah, it's working. It's working. And it's not, I've trained 5 different teachers on this to do supervision. And I gave them a document that's like 2 pages long. I haven't gotten a single question after I did that. Like 30 minutes in Axiom. I just said, bookmark these things. Here's a document with some screenshots. Do this. It's plug and play. So really not a lot of issues in using Axiom here, even though it would be nice to have it in the portal. Question. It looks very similar to other programs. What would you say is the biggest advantage in using extended care over other programs? I think I was mentioning this at the top too. The difference between them, I think, so that's a great question. I did research this, and I think it is outlined in the community. I think a couple of differences is one, the extended care does tie into the student logistics request. Matter of fact, I think I have that configuration up. I believe the extended care deals with the SLRs, and it manages the daily attendance. I think other programs is thought of as like, I mean, look at the title, is like another program. It has its own system, and it doesn't necessarily tie in with the day. That's what's in my memory about it. But it is effectively, they're almost identical. The SLR is the only thing. Matter of fact, let's look at the I just figured out where that was. So if we go down to in the system homepage, down at the bottom, there is or somewhere. I just had it up this morning. Let me find it. So logistics request categories. This is a system configuration. Yeah, this is the difference right here. Because you can't put up, you can see there's no other programs in this, and you can't add to this, I don't believe. So there's the extended care. You can see there's the text that I added that we saw earlier. Let's make that bigger. And display. I don't know what display reads. Oh, there's some, yeah. But there it is. That's the difference right there. And I don't think if a student is absent for the day and you are enrolled in another program, I don't think it updates the attendance there. So that's the best answer I can give you at the moment. But they are effectively the same thing. I mean, in terms of system config stuff. Good question. And I'm glad we got to this because this took me a while to figure out too. There's like one hidden article in the community about how to turn this on. And I honestly haven't touched SLR since we implemented. So I totally forgot where this was. Attendance. This is all my the teachers or the supervisors deal with. I made some other queries. You can make as many as you want. Boom. I can't remember all the queries I made for them. So I just I tagged, the reports, after school reports, front desk, supervision, attendance, after school. The one confusing piece that the fact that they're broken out as two classes, they're really the same class for us. Again, this is about your use case. I really just treat them as the same. It's just that some kids are showing up late, and that does tie into my last piece though, is the parent communication. We go back to here. So we've done attendance, classes, parent communication. So for the kids registered at 3:00, at 3:45, I have a person whose job at that time of the day, they go in and look at the attendance that the supervisor did, finds all the people that are expected but not present, puts together a composer email, sends it to parents and says, hey, we don't know, we thought your student was going to be here. They're not. Most of the time it's the parents forgot to tell us. I mean, that's generally what happens. So that's for the people that come at 3. Now, the issue we're dealing with is what if people dribble in over the course of an hour from different practices. And I won't go into the details of that, but what we need to do is know all the practice schedules, make sure that the coaches are taking attendance, and we're going to do a similar thing. But we're not quite there yet. The other email that is sent out around 3:45 is who is in the room, but we didn't know about. So those are we call those, what did I call those? Impromptu drop-ins or something, I can't remember, I had a term. So a kid that is wandering around the halls at 3:00, one of our administrators says, hey, you can't just be wandering around the halls, you have to go to study hall. Parent didn't ask us to watch them. We just need to keep track of this kid. We put him in the study hall, the supervision room. The supervisor adds them as a drop-in. So that is one piece of functionality the supervisor does do, is add drop-ins, but the screen is pretty straightforward. And then at 3:45 or 4:00, our front desk person sends an email and says, hey, your student is here. They're safe. We have them in this room. Come and pick them up by 5. And it's just a composer email, sends it off. And a lot of that is, of course, like I said earlier, just a motivation for them to register or to keep us informed of when we should have their kids. So I'm not going to get into the composer realm. It's, I made a composer email. He goes through a query, check, sends the double checks to see if there's any obvious mistakes, and then sends the email. It's pretty much plug and play. We put it in a communication channel. Here's our channels. Attendance updates. You can see we have after school study hall missing student. So kid's not here. Those middle two, 29 and 400, those are made for our main attendance, and then unexpected drop-in students. So, hey, we have your kid. So those are the top two, the bottom one and the top and bottom ones are the ones we send for this process. And again, seems like it's gone really well. Parents have figured it out, and we're not having a lot of problems with it. So, but it is, I have to say, a pretty convoluted process. It was a lot to put together. So I'm wrapping up here. I will just say my pitfalls, the top 10 pitfalls: no attendance in the portal, unless for some reason you had a program that ran every single day. If the kids were expected to be there every day after school, then it would work. It's just, it doesn't give you the detail of what day a kid is expected. So portal, the registration piece, as I mentioned, having to impersonate a parent to be able to get that registration to work perfectly is annoying. I wish add registration would add it so the parent, otherwise, if I do add registration, the parents, when they go to their form, don't see that the kid is registered on that day. So I think that's pretty much a bug as far as I'm concerned. I think the attendance stuff is good. And the student logistics request not tying automatically into the extended program attendance. The fact that we have to do that by hand seems clunky. So they take an SLR, we approve it, then we have to go over here and add drop-in. And it seems like if we have a student logistics request that says, I want to join this class, it should do it. But that's, again, I'm not sure if that functionality is coming or if it's just broken. So those are kind of my main pitfalls. Once I kind of got it all going, it's a lot of different pieces, right? So once the form, I have to say the thing that took maybe the longest was setting up the configuration, the forms, and me learning how to do the attendance, like, oh, what happens if I do a drop in and don't add a registration, or if I add a registration for this day on the back end of Axiom? Oh, if I impersonate, figuring out all of those little workflow scenarios took me a long time. And I did put in some tickets and said, hey, I don't know how to do this, and this is not working the way I expect. So, and when I do this presentation again, I'm probably going to go back and look at my tickets that I entered for it, because I did get a lot of good help from the community and from the tickets on how to do this. So that's all I have. Again, I appreciate that it's a little bit rough, kind of threw this together, but I'll take any questions or anything.
I'll just say thank you for putting that together. That was super helpful, even though your use case is different from ours, but it was great to see how you make it work for your school. So thank you and have a good weekend.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.